Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
And I'm Brad, otherwise known as Redbay.
We got you back on the pod because you recently debuted and previewed your new Stars of Sinistera set, which is a kind of a movie theme set. We'll talk about it a little bit at the end. But what you were thinking we could talk about is like how you actually got this set put together. And that really resonated. Here's something that a lot of people want to do. I want to make a set. I maybe want to team up with a friend or two to make that set. What are the pitfalls that I could run into? And then what are the solutions that you have or that you and Peter have putting together that set?
Yeah, so we had finished Wrenchmar, Gambit of the Junk Lords, which was our post-apocalyptic junkyard world set. And we were kind of in the ideation phase for a new set, which was Rebels, which was our graffiti punk, stick it to the man type set. And we hit a lot of hurdles, both in the idea of the set, the mechanics of the set. We had a lot of things that we were really excited about, and then when we got to initial playtesting, we're like, this isn't quite jiving the way that we thought it would. And then the other thing that was happening while all this was occurring was August was looming, and at that point Peter was like, hey, I'm going back to school in August, so we're running out of time. Do you think we could finish a full set kind of over the course of July?
Oh, okay. So it was like sort of a time challenge. Like, hey, I'd like to do this, but I only have this exact period of time.
Yeah. So one of the very first, or sorry, I say one of the very first things, but actually that was a very like blended conversation. There's probably maybe 50 things happening kind of all at once.
Sure.
Like, could we salvage Rebels was something that we thought about. Could we do like a Pacific Rim style kaiju set? And the things that we kept hitting on were, how do we make the whole thing aesthetically cohesive and feel like a Magic set, and while also nailing new custom mechanics. We think that that's kind of an important part of making a new custom set, and then also hit those like playtesting goals of like actually playing with the cards. That was something that we've learned from our time doing Wrenchmar, was you actually do need to play with the cards in order to figure out, are they functioning the way that you want them to, and you want to do it early and often, and we only got a month.
Alrighty, yeah. So I guess part of what you're thinking about here is kind of the opposite of a lot of other people working on a set, where a set might take an unbounded amount of time. Like I have a set that I started working on 10 years ago that I just fired back up the other day. You're maybe like concerned that if you even let it run to the end of the month and it's not finished, then it's half done, then that will never get picked up, or you just fiddle with it forever and never quite resolve it.
Both Peter and I are very concerned about the just tweaking endlessly on any given project, because like what defines done, I think is something that a lot of custom designers will struggle with for most of their hobby doing this, or if they turn it into a career, like complete perfect. Those are hard things to actually nail down, and I find in this space it's even almost impossible in many respects, because you can always make it better.
It's a thing that comes up a lot in like the video game kind of like indie space as well, of like, hey, rather than working 7 years on your first game, make a couple games if you can bear to, I guess maybe is often the limiter. If you could bear to release something that you don't feel is perfect, or that you could put more features into, or that you could, continue to dream about. Because having something that's done is maybe a way to say like, hey, I can look back and look at my process and evaluate that process now that it's over. Whereas if it was still going, it's a little harder to like actually learn from it.
The other nice thing about a project is like when you do actually get the chance to say it's done,
Hmm.
that it almost breathes new life into the next thing that you're going to do, because you get to move on and you get to
Oh,
not
okay.
feel stagnant or anything like that. Like
Yeah.
what I ran into even this weekend was like, I could I could start working on like a Castmeyer thing,
Oh, there
and
you
you know,
go.
I didn't have that in my mind or feel any desire to do anything like that, because I was so stuck on Stars of Sinistera and I wanted to get that done.
Uh,
And now that it's quote unquote done, I we'll come back at the end on, you know, there's always opportunity for improvement.
sure.
There's always
Yeah.
opportunity to make the cards better, but I still am happy to say, hey, I can put this on the shelf now and I don't need to touch it again for a little while.
I can also sort of appreciate the problem that you can build up where you have multiple projects that are unfinished and then like which one to work on, which one is worth your time. Like I was saying, I have this old set that I fired back up. I also have like one or two other projects that I are pretty far along but are not done. It can kind of put you in a pit. And where at this point now I just say, here are the things that I have. I'm not starting a new one until I finish one. But will I finish one? Who knows? Like it's just so you have what is I would say like a fairly large amount of work to do in only a month. Maybe we can start to get a sense of like what you were guessing you were going to be spending your time on, or like did you divvy up work? Did you basically just both work on the same thing at the same time? Maybe we can start to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, I think the thing that started this particular project off was the realization that if we attack the project from a place of it's not going to have an aesthetic through line. So this was, we didn't know what necessarily what that meant, but if
Hmm.
you think about like a magic core set or
Mm.
like a vignette set, that like telling multiple storylines in the same set, so maybe things look different on purpose. That
Yeah.
was a thought that we were having,
Oh.
was we could get away with not having as such a strong defined world, and we'll figure out what that why that's the case. So from there, what we did is we laid out our plan just based on the, okay, these are the weeks of July that are available. So we set out week one to be, okay, let's get the commons done and let's make sure we get a playtest done with the commons.
Wow, week one. All right.
So the way that Peter and I went into this is we sketched out some of the mechanics just in a like in a Discord chat using pins and threads and stuff like that for, okay, if this is like a movie world, which we did end up latching onto, was
Mm.
like we're gonna do like 10 film genres, and we'll figure out later how that's all going to work and how
Mm.
the flavor of the world is going to work. uh, so we came up with a couple mechanics, and then you kind of picked a color and you started making cards in that color with the new mechanics just to see if they've got legs.
Were you working separately and then you compared afterward? Were you working out of the same file? How did that kind of stuff work?
Because we're talking about a week, right? All of these doodles are happening and you're creating more doodles than you're actually going to turn into cards.
Hmm.
So, but that's happening in the course of like an afternoon where you go
Mm.
from 0% done to 90% done.
Hmm.
uh, and then the next day somebody's putting art into an MSE file, and somebody's loading text, rules text onto those cards and picking funny card names just to make them try to stick, those types of
Mm.
things. And then when you get your thumb in the air saying, yeah, good enough, then moving on to the next thing and not getting too hung up on it, because the playtests are what's going to inform what's going to stay and what's
Hmm.
going to go.
Okay. Yeah. Not trying to be too. That is one of the harder parts working on your first draft of commons in a set. You know, you it's typical people have the whole skeleton, you know, you can find tools or lists of like what you need to get a set started, how many cards of each color. You know, you need to have a certain curve, a certain number of creatures, that kind of stuff. You have the full skeleton. And then you go to design each card, and our aesthetic as magic players means that we can look at a common and know whether it's realistic or not. And unfortunately, that can kind of like shut you down. Like, oh, this is, at this size, this wouldn't be playable. Oh, I just have to start over. Oh, I haven't found something good. And that can kind of paralyze you a little bit. But you're saying, hey, let's accept that we might not be happy with these commons. And let's just accept that. And let's just get the playtest going because we need to find out if the overall mechanical suite is something that has any interest to it.
Yeah. So for example, one of our mechanics, Blockbuster, which is a taps excess permanence that you have in order to get like a kicker effect. Okay, were we getting to game states where you actually could commit extra permanence to casting the spell? And did it feel like it was risky? Like if you did it, you'd be too tapped out and your opponent kind of kills you, or it wasn't risky enough. Like you could do it, you could just kind of free roll it. So we knew when we were doing this, we just wanted to, was it fun? Like, was the idea
Mm.
of casting a spell for a larger amount of mana or tapping more of your creatures down? Was that something that you wanted to do? And if you didn't want to do it, okay, then we got to basically scrap it and then come back to trying to do something else. But we
Mm.
came away from our commons playtest like very optimistic that we had landed on a mechanical suite that worked, which helped us set up our momentum for getting into the uncommons.
That's interesting. Yeah. Hey, our goal is not to make good commons. Our goal is to make commons that are good enough to test these mechanics.
Yeah,
So it can give you like some extra, I don't know, protection for your heart when you're like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to save and export these cards that I know I still want to change." But the goal is not the cards. The goal is not the cards. The goal is the mechanics, and we just need cards to test those mechanics. Huh. All right, I like that. So you got a first playtest in. Is this cockatrice? How you testing these cards?
we're both very limited mindset
Mm.
players, so we did do Draftmancer exports for getting like some very rudimentary sealed decks put together, and then we took those sealed decks into Cockatrice and just jam as many games and as many decks featuring as many different card designs as you possibly could. So
Mm.
we didn't do any best of three or anything like that.
Right.
And mulligans are free. Like just get an opening hand that works and then play the cards. And then just having the foresight of, hey, this game is kind of over. We can just
Yeah.
stop and play another
Okay.
game. We don't need to see like if you draw out of this thing or anything like that. Like
Yeah.
we can move on. We can get some more games in. We can play with some more cards.
Oh, okay. So you're playing like 10 3.5 minute games in an hour or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
just
Okay.
as many games, cast as many cards as you can. As soon as you feel done, just okay, let's on to the next one.
This is a good plan. So you come out of that play test. Are you then trying to lock in a bunch of commons? Like, or you're still saying, no, 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 we still have some bigger structural things to change?
We definitely locked in uh, the majority of the commons at this
Oh,
point,
okay.
and then some of them got tweaked, and then some of them got totally removed. Something that we ran into with Rebels is, which was a result of our work on Wrenchmire, was in during Rebels we're like, okay, we're going to try to keep better logs of all the cards we delete unless we want to come back to them. And I think
Hmm.
that was like a good thing in theory for if you got a long enough project and you get the chance to re-review those things,
Hmm.
then it works. But I think in something like this where the time frame is so constrained, we abandoned any type of like change log or deleted file or anything like that. We just, hey, those designs are gone now, unfortunately. And if we
Hmm.
remember them, we'll bring them back if we need to, but we're going to keep moving forward. And then from the other thing that is just nice about set design is when you're starting to get into the higher rarity designs, you can always work back to the commons as well and say, okay, now that we've got some of our uncommon suite, are these commons still jiving? Is this, do we need different effects at this rarity to make the higher rarities and now like the draft archetypes work? And then you can adjust them from there.
And then that was just another set of these like 3-minute game play test kind of things.
Yeah, so when we had the archetype uncommons completed and some other uncommons just to get things in the mix and again to keep things moving, we did some playtest games again and same idea, just best
Hmm.
of one, uh, keep them fast and don't let anything get too sloggy. And I think with if there was anything that was different between the second set of playtests and the first set of playtests, it was okay. We're actually a little bit more married to the mechanical suite at this point, so we're going to
Hmm.
focus more on the cards and less on
Okay.
the overall mechanic.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Don't get too attached to the cards. Emphasize that the point is to do playtesting every week. And then what can we get done between each playtest realistically? All right.
yeah, we're hurtling to the 50% mark to the 100% mark. That's when we're getting into some of the acknowledgement that hey, this has got to be a magic set, and magic
Hmm.
sets have flavor, and people are expecting characters and story, and a lot of the things that uh, I would kind of call it like a layer of polish that just it's not just board game pieces. Like there's
Hmm.
more going on there, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
people expect that. So at this point, we're trying to, because of the specific needs of our set, we're really trying to emphasize the hey, there's 10 movie worlds. Okay, so there's going to be 10 movies. There's going to be characters in those movies. And
Mm.
do the genres line up with like the archetypes and the card names and the movie titles? So all of that is starting to get added on to the top of things as we're moving through all of the card designs.
Mm. So you're like happy enough with enough of the cards mechanically that it's not as much of a waste of time to start flavoring it.
Exactly.
So you said you had like 10 different movies basically, which are I assume the 10 different limited archetypes. Was it tough to pick 10 different movies? That feels not easy.
Thankfully, Peter is definitely more of a film buff than I am, but both of us really enjoy movies, and we
Okay.
had things that we could. There was both things that we wanted to have in the set as a like a reference, and then there was stuff that we had common knowledge of that we could both use when we're thinking about some of the creative for the set.
Hmm.
I think because we had like blue red comedy as the
Oh,
archetype headline
okay.
very early on, and then when we were going through the art for it, we're like, is this something that we could actually depict and people are going to understand? So
Okay.
we very quickly realized, oh, superhero films are
Yeah.
huge and the
Okay.
aesthetic is obvious, so we can use
Hmm.
that instead.
Okay.
And we think that people are able to latch on to that aspect, which is great.
Okay. Yeah. So you had to tweak a couple of them, but you had a list. You applied them to color pairs, and it sounds like it went reasonably smoothly through that process.
Yeah, I think out of all of them, like the blue black ninja deck is maybe the most suspect out of all of them, but I like kung fu movies, so
Oh, okay.
it got to stay.
All right. Yeah. So are you still just kind of composing decks however you feel like it? Hey, let me just throw 23 cards in there, or did you ever want to do like a sealed, or the sealed would take too much time?
We definitely did a lot of sealed actually.
Oh, okay.
That was just because it's hard to sometimes look at a whole file and
Yeah.
be able to pick out the individual pieces.
Okay.
For us, it's a little faster to uh, open six packs. Something that I liked to do was just re-roll the sealed until I saw a specific archon or a specific rare.
Rerolling the sealed. Okay. Yeah.
Uh, and
Mm,
I know Peter tended to just do more. Hey, this is a sealed. I opened it up. These are the cards that were here,
yeah.
and that meant that both of us were kind of testing different aspects of the set at the same time,
Okay.
and we got to see different things. So where his was more okay from a limited perspective, is the set functioning, and for me it was
Mm.
more okay, is a specific archetype functioning.
Hmm. I like the idea of re-rolling sealed. That's something that I'm gonna steal. I don't know. I guess I had in my mind whatever your seal pool is, that's what you have to accept just from years of limited. But if I'm playtesting, forget about that. I guess in paper also, it's a pain in the butt to re-roll a seal. So
Yeah, and like theoretically, you could. Okay, I built the perfect blue green deck, but I didn't open the blue green Archon. Okay, well, you can change a card to the blue
oh
green
yeah,
Archon.
yeah, yeah. I've done that.
I liked seeing like the
Yeah.
card in the pool, and then okay, how
Mhm.
do I build around that now that I actually have opened it up? Just to because that's more of the as fan stuff, and again, that stuff is hard to nail down in a
Mm.
really short amount of time frame. It takes like you want to open a lot of packs, you want to do a lot of drafts to see if
Yeah,
something
yeah.
is really working. But
Are
uh,
there actually enough soldiers for this soldiers matter thing, or are
yeah,
there way too many, and you just get to automatically do it all the time? Yeah. So you're marching on a week of kind of fleshing out rares? I think rares are probably the hardest thing to design on a schedule for me.
this is where uh, Peter and I are again a good team, and
Okay.
maybe at some other point we'll have to talk about teams because he is very good at making a lot of rares really quickly that
Wow.
uh, like they're 85% to 95% of the way there, and all you want to do is just touch up some of the wording and maybe like adjust a cost or adjust a power of toughness, those types of things.
Oh,
Where
nice.
I do find like the initial ideation for a rare is like it's too open ended. It's almost daunting.
Mm,
Whereas, and this is the weirdest thing is like when the rarities flip and we're doing mythics, I can bomb those off very quickly, and it's just because like those are not real limited cards
mm.
in my mind. So they're you just do whatever you want. That's where you're using like the weirdest language and some of the most
Sure.
powerful text, and you don't have to worry about it because nobody's going to open them anyway, right? It's going to be fine.
Yeah. I feel like a rare is like a kind of minimum 30 minutes for me. I don't know how I would go design a bunch of rares quickly. That I was just designing a couple rares the other day, and it's like, well, I think I worked on 4 cards in 2 hours. So, and those are existing cards that I was just reworking. Uh, I don't know. You think about those forever because you can always go a little deeper. You have more, like you said, more permission to do weird things. Uh, but if you're doing a weird thing, there should be a great reason to do a weird thing. Um, so you're doing a play test each weekend. Is that kind of the idea, or during the week, or
Yeah, usually towards the back end of the week going. So the idea there was we want to do the play testing because we want to use the weekend to fix up anything that we found during the play testing,
oh, okay.
and then we get to start the next week off kind of fresh on the next part of the project. And
Hmm.
so it was like Thursday mornings, and for me this was like 4:30, 5:30 in the morning to line up with Peter's
Oh,
schedule, and yeah, play for an hour and a half, and jot down a whole bunch of notes. Uh, the other thing I guess I should say is like when you're playtesting these things and you're playtesting the mechanics, it's still not hyper focusing so much on "Oh, I didn't like that this creature traded with this other creature." It's more about was the feeling of the deck working? Was did you think that the your mechanic was still functioning in the way that you wanted it to? Were cards pairing together in novel ways that you liked? Like what were the good things that were happening? Less the oh, this was a horrible feel bad. Like you still have to document the horrible feel bads and try to correct for them, but you always we are always trying to focus on the good parts of it, and can we re-emphasize those good parts so that there's more of them as the games were happening.
yeah. I like this commitment to early playtesting. Doing that as a team, that's maybe one of the big benefits is that you have like someone who is as committed as you to progress this thing. And so you don't have the normal playtest thing of like, well, have to have something good enough so that it's entertaining and interesting enough to my friends or some internet friends, that kind of thing where you have to like justify why someone should join a playtest. You don't have to justify because you already have a partner.
Yeah. I think I really latched on to an earlier episode of Beacon when Platy People and Ignited were talking about working on Hyperpop together.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that sounded novel to me at the time. And I still
Mhm.
don't see a lot of it in the custom community, or at least it's not obvious where you can see like the 2-person or 3-person groups working on a set. It seems like a lot of people going solo on things and then hoping or maybe even actively working with folks that they know to fill out that testing team. Working with Peter now on 3 different projects, and both of us, like you said, being committed to, hey, if we want this thing to work, we're going to have to playtest this thing
Yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah,
Um, that it does make it more plausible to do something like this in a short time span. Whereas, yeah, if I had to do this by myself, or if Peter had to do this by himself, I don't know if we could have got through July with a
yeah,
nearly finished or at least 100% coherent end product.
yeah, yeah. I tend to feel like for my own stuff, I brainstorm on like some random Saturday for like 3 hours and then not again for another month and a half. Like it's hard to sustain the energy. Whereas if you're working with people, that person's kind of, one of the two of you has a little bit of energy and then you can kind of amplify each other and get some stuff done.
And even as well, when we're talking about extroverted thinking and those types of things, like some
Yeah.
folks, and I count myself in that group, where my best brainstorming and my best idea sessions are ones where there's back and forth between myself and another human being.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
just putting doodles into a document or into the void doesn't really get me anywhere. But as soon as there's somebody
Mhm.
commenting on it saying, hey, I like this, I don't like that, it's like, okay, awesome. I got something to work with and move on to the next part. And
Mhm.
we get to do that 24/7 over on our Boros Bay Borders private Discord where where Peter and I are just, I was thinking about this. Oh, that's cool. I was also kind of thinking about that. And then you also get
Mm.
into what we were calling same brain, which is when you both have the same thought and you're kind of typing it simultaneously. You're like, okay, that's something we got to run with because we're having the same brain on it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That's part of the regularity is other people. Yeah. That makes sense. Huh. All right, yeah. So you also had to art all the cards, right? You find art for the cards. Did you just already have your kind of reservoirs of links of galleries already built up, or did you have to seek a bunch of new stuff for this set?
So we used ArtStation pretty much 100% of the time for all
Hmm.
of the art. The Magic Set Editor Discord has a lovely uh, collection of collections. It's a Google
Mm.
sheet, and it's got a maybe a genre or a title or something that you can kind of search, and then if you click that link, it'll be another custom designer's compendium of art for
Ah,
that
okay.
given genre. So
Ah.
if you're looking for Lorwyn cards, okay, there'll be 3 different links in there where some people have collected some fairy art or some Kithkin
Mhm.
art, and you're like, okay, I've got a little bit here to work with. Because we were doing film genre, it was even easier in that respect because you search Pacific Rim, you search Godzilla, you're going to get all of the stuff for those types of films. And then when we search various horror titles, it's the same kind of thing where you're going to get a bunch of art that falls into the horror scape. So the other thing that we did was just collect a bunch of extra links as we were going through, because if there was an art piece that we weren't liking by the time we were getting to the end of the set, we wanted to go back and
Yeah.
change it. It
Hmm.
was nice to just have some stuff already set aside for like a slush file like WotC used to do a long time ago.
Of stuff that you liked but didn't yet have a home for.
Yeah.
So you got the set in like a great state. You had enough cards, for the whole set to say, hey, this is a whole set. You also planned out a little bit of a preview season. I think this is another thing that kind of like the planning for playtesting, planning to advertise your set It's like a good thing to do to make sure that you're happy with the outcome of your work. A really common thing that I see is like people posting, on Reddit, Blue Sky, Twitter back in the day, even on Discord is like, here is a giant thing I just made. Here's the link. That's all I got. And that can be hard to hook onto and engage with. Whereas a little kind of, homegrown preview season for a set is a way to introduce something over time. How did you end up deciding to do that and how did you plan it?
So on the Magic Set Editor Discord, they have a custom previews channel that is just humming pretty much all year round with new sets coming out from different people. So I liked that overall concept of doing like a spoiler season like you would do for a regular Magic set. The other thing was kind of still that re-cementing that, hey, this thing is done. So if we're going to
Mm,
share it and we're going to go through
yeah.
the process of sharing it bit by bit, uh, we want to, okay, like this is going to be complete, then it's going to be error free, ready to share with the world. From there, like we followed the Wizards of the Coast style spoiler season pretty much to the letter, in the sense of
Mm,
like we're going to do the teaser and hopefully people will see some stuff in there that they want to try to speculate on, and then okay, so this is the set name and this is the breakdown of the rarities and here's some art, and then from there, okay, we're going to get into like the mechanical discussion. I think the fun thing that we did here was leaning into the film tropes of like, hey, we're going to run a poll and we're going to ask people what
mm,
movie they want to watch, and then
yeah.
that movie is going to tell people what mechanic we're going to talk about first. And uh, that was a fun little thing we got to do, and that was kind of ad hoc. Actually, we had got through the first part about like the teaser and the preview, and I was like, how do we want to talk about the mechanics? Like, should we just do it day by day? I was like, actually, I think it'd be kind of fun to just run a poll and see what movie people want to watch, because that's something that we run into all the time in my own household of like turning on a streaming service and being like, okay, what are we gonna watch, and feeling that decision making paralysis.
Mm,
From there, we did drafts of each of the mechanical previews in our own Discord, and we talked about uh, making sure that each of the things were phrased in a way where people could hopefully feel our excitement for like our mechanics, feel the excitement for the set at large, leave enough intrigue in there, like don't show 40 cards of a mechanic or whatever, because then it's going to be too much. There's going to be nothing to like chat about, and there's not going to be anything left at the end of the preview season. Like there will be no reason to like click the link and check out the full set spoiler.
mm,
And yeah, just trying to make sure there was like a good mix of like, okay, this is like a workhorse common, this is uncommon build around, this is a cool rare that we think has got some mechanical intrigue that people could
yeah.
be excited about.
Yeah, that feels like a nice way also to kind of do the equivalent of like a devlog. Hey, I'm going to record my work as I do it. But rather than having to like think of what I want to talk about or think of like what should I say this week that I worked on because I worked on a million things, instead it's more formulaic than that. Hey, I'm going to go through the set in the same way that Wizards does. I'm going to highlight things the same way that Wizards does, and like it's easier to fit together. You don't have to like brainstorm what to preview. You just kind of do it, I guess.
Yeah. And similar to this podcast, it was also kind of fun, even during the preview season, to talk about, hey, this is a little hurdle that we encountered while we were going through this, and this is how we solved
Yeah,
for that hurdle. Because I
yeah,
think a lot of custom designers are interested in, like, how did you get to where did you, like, this thing that I'm looking at? Because I
yeah.
don't know if I would have got here based on my experience working in this type of space. So
Hmm,
it's
hmm.
cool to see the story behind it.
Yeah. People are like when I bring people on for an episode or if I'm just talking to someone about the set that they work on, they're an infinite reservoir of answers to those kinds of questions. But just like prompting someone in the dark, "Hey, tell me something interesting about your set." That's like a query that has no answer, right? Like you're not actually going to find the kind of cool nuggets that you're looking for with questions like that. Whereas if you have to like procedurally sort of go through, "Hey, let me explain each of these archetypes. Let me explain each of these mechanics. Let me highlight a couple cards." You got to unearth like 50 thoughts in that process that you had that would have otherwise gone unsaid. We want to remember that stuff or write down that stuff while we still have a good chance of remembering it. Not like 5 years later when you have to guess it. Like, why did I do that? I can guess why I did that, but I don't really know why. So one of the things you mentioned is that of the I don't know 1,000 pieces of information you created between choosing an arc, choosing a card name, choosing a mechanic, choosing power and toughness. However many decisions it takes to make a set. One of the decisions came right near the end, which is the name of the set.
Yeah, and it's almost embarrassing how little time and energy we put into it.
Hmm.
So Stars of Sinistera it's a cool name. I think it's very evocative of what it is that we were trying to do. Um, but I think was like July 31st or something like that, and we're okay. Preview season is tomorrow. It's August 1st. What are we calling this thing that we've just been calling it film for the entire month of July? And so it's like, okay, can we add like IA to filmia? That doesn't sound very appealing. And so you're going onto like thesaurus.com or word hippo,
Hmm.
and you're doing
Word hippo. What is this? Never
Word
heard of word hippo.
Hippo is a slightly fancier thesaurus.com
Oh,
where
okay.
it can handle phrases a little bit. So you
Oh,
can,
okay.
it doesn't just do like word to word. You can put a couple words into there and it'll try to give you some synonyms for it.
Oh, okay.
Uh, and then you're like on Google doing what is the Latin origin of cinema or whatever. Like what's what
Uh,
what's a magic name? And then Peter did Sinistera, and I was like, yeah, that's got kind of the right
yeah.
vibe, and
Yeah.
it's got the sign Cine. I'm sure I'm gonna get the reason why sign is the way it is from
Oh,
Juliet at some other point, but I don't need to look it up right now.
yeah. Feels good enough. You might back yourself into the dreaded situation of the first half of a Latin word and the second half of a Greek word. Ah, what a sin. Uh, I, I think we pretty much hit everything from the making of this set. Can you think of other stuff? I guess the overall tools just to run down MSC. Did you guys share an MSC file? And it's just like, hey, don't touch it while I'm touching it kind of system.
So I am the de facto MSE file master.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
whatever file I've got on my computer is the one that will always default to
Okay.
for everything, which
Yeah.
leads to the dreaded ghost changes, which is where I make a bunch of touch ups to cards and then forget to tell Peter about it until some
Mm,
other day. And he's
yeah.
like, "Hey,
Yeah.
wait a minute, what happened here?"
Yep.
And then MSE under the card has a notes box, and he would
Oh, yeah.
sometimes leave a note in there saying this was
Mm.
a change on July 11th or something like that.
Mhm.
And then I would just search for that note, and I would find all the cards that he wanted changed, and then I would adjust my file to match those changes.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm a big fan of the putting to do or something in the notes section in MSE. Magic Set Editor, which we haven't said out loud, but MSE, that little note field I put to do. I love having to do in there. And then I could just search for to do and then here are the 10 cards that need the most help right now. Narrow it down real quick.
I do some Scryfall tagging style stuff in
Oh,
there.
okay. Oh, you're advanced. Yeah.
Hashtag white, hashtag uncommon, hashtag sequel,
Ah,
those types of things, so that okay, I
okay.
want to just look at all the uncommons. Okay, I want to only look at white cards or
Mm,
those types
mm.
of things because MSC's it's got good filters and it's got good sorting functions. It's all built in, but
Yeah.
I just like being able to. I only want to look at these 11 cards right now, and I don't want to see the other ones.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
get them out of my view type of thing.
Throw some notes in there, yeah. And then you said you were using Draftmancer to probably pop sealed pools, or did you do some drafts? I know you did a couple drafts with the Discord, but Draftmancer, Cockatrice for playing the actual games. How many apostrophes messed up your export this time? uh, it's always the question. Awesome. Well, I think that's probably about it in terms of like, here's the guide. The main tech to me has been view your initial commons as a way to test your mechanics. Basically, using your partner as a way to keep the momentum up for cards, having in the plan that our goal is to play test at these specific times, and then using preview season as a way to kind of retroactively do like a dev log while you still have all that information in your mind. So yeah, hopefully there's a lot for people to take away and for people to use in their own sets. Um, I think before we get out of here, I wanted you to actually have a chance to tell people a little bit about the set on the pod. We know it's like this movie theme set. You said something about like superheroes and some other stuff. Maybe we can get one or two mechanics, one or two factions if you want to.
Sure. So I've got a card here, Horizons Unfolding, 2 and a blue, sorcery, common. And it's got Blockbuster 4. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may tap 4 untapped non-aura permanents you control. If you do,
Oh,
this spell is a blockbuster. And then the rules text is draw 2 cards. If this spell is a blockbuster, draw 3 cards instead.
wow.
Blockbuster is like a film term, and it's usually talking
Okay.
about spending a lot of money to
Mm,
make a film into something that people are going to be really excited to see. And Peter really resonated with this, like this phrase and this word, and it was felt like something that we could put into a set and make it really obvious that we're talking about maybe something film related, and it would not be something that's going to get probably eaten up by canon magic anytime soon.
yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe someday, but yeah. With the universes beyond, I feel like a lot of words have now become endangered. I don't know how to say that. That were previously safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is like kicker, but the kicker cost is kind of payable by tapping anything. So rather than a kicker of 4 mana, it's a kicker of tap 4 permanents. I guess non-aura permanents, but yeah. Okay. And at least in this case, you know, you're kind of juicing something up not to an extreme side, but more to like eking like that extra card out of this draw spell.
So I feel like this card, maybe the blockbuster cost is a little outsized for what the card is at this
Oh,
point,
really? Okay.
and that's maybe a little bit result of two things. So when you're doing all commons playtesting, these like card draw spells are really excellent
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
they give you a lot of gas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were like, oh, blockbuster 3 is, it feels too cheap because we're casting it for its blockbuster all the time. So we bumped that up to 4. And then late in our whole process, we added the non-aura clause because we thought that players would potentially struggle or dislike
Mm,
when you tap like an aura based removal spell to
mm.
cast your blockbuster. So like when you reach over and you tap your own pacifism to
Yeah.
blockbuster, we thought that was going to be
Oh,
both unintuitive, like people wouldn't notice it right away, and then even when they do notice it, it would almost feel like they were cheating. So we wanted to just kind of kill that.
okay. Yeah. How high did the blockbuster cost go?
We have an Urza's Rage riff with Blockbuster 12. I think that's our
12.
biggest one.
Are there a lot of pretty expensive blockbuster costs?
Yeah, there's a good range. So we wanted to make sure that different decks wanted different blockbuster spells for different reasons. So this Horizons Unfolding, it's going to fit into any blue deck, but I think the
Mm,
white blue deck is the one that is going to get the most value from it, from white generating like a lot of token permanents, and then you get to tap them down to draw some cards, and then you can deploy more permanents from there. But red offers some like really cheap blockbusters, and that
mm.
gives you that more aggressive feeling blockbuster deck. And then when you pair red with white, now you're getting like the token generation with white, and you're getting the aggressive bent
Hmm.
red blockbusters. So that deck is very aggressive as a result.
Blockbusters across at least 3 colors here. Is that all the colors it's in? Is it part of a faction thing? How does that work?
So blockbuster is in all 5 colors, but
Okay.
the Jeskai colors are the ones that do it the most, and then black and green just get like a little bit of it, just because
Oh, okay. Yeah.
we didn't want to exclude it, because it's like a kicker alike. It feels pretty safe
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have in all the colors.
All right, cool. Anything else you wanna tease for people?
So I think third act is maybe our, when custom designers are like, I can fix it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I'm going to read the rules text for third act, and I'll come back to the card. So
Sure,
it's
yeah.
third act. If your life total is less than half of your starting life total, or if you
Okay.
have one or fewer cards in hand, you enter the third act for the rest of the game. So
Mm.
this is a little bit Fateful Hour. It's a little
Yeah.
bit Heck Bent. It's a little
Yeah.
bit City's Blessing. And we noticed with Fateful Hour that 5 is like a really low life total, and it also doesn't scale all that well in multiplayer. Like when everybody's starting
Yeah.
at 40 life, it's
Yeah.
it's really hard to get to 5
Mhm.
and have it be meaningful. And then Hellbent is also something that tends to be undesirable for most Magic
Yeah.
games. Like actually getting to 0 cards is kind of a big ask. So this was our mix of the two of them, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
doing the city's blessing thing is also nice because you can hit those thresholds, and then you can pull yourself back out from being in that bad state.
Hmm.
Like you can get more cards in back in your hand, or you can get your life total back up higher. So you don't have to feel like you're on the teetering edge of losing the game for multiple turns type of thing. And then so this card, Heroes Rise, 1 red and a white. It's an enchantment. It's a mythic, and it's creatures you control. Or sorry, it's got third act, and then creatures you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control gain flying until end of turn if you're in your third act.
Hmm. Okay. We wanna give a reward for being deeper in the game, but the existing solutions were both kinda tough. Like, managing Hellbent, even Heckbent, like the what you called it, the, like, 1 or less cards in hand, that is still sometimes kind of tedious or tricky to manage. But by having it be a permanent state, once you've cleared this bar once, now you don't have to worry about it anymore. That makes it a little easier to track if you're playing with multiple cards that have this ability. 10 life, I guess 10 life isn't necessarily that dangerous and limited, but I would say that 20 life in Commander is actually when you feel like you're in danger. Any big play will kill you when you're at 20 life in EDH. Did you put a lot of third deck cards in this set, or is this more like a 10 card special?
When I search it, it shows 50 cards out of our
50
200.
cards.
Yeah, we
Wow.
went pretty hard actually on
That's almost a
third act.
third.
Yeah. At common, it's just 13 cards, so it is more
Yeah.
prevalent at the
Wow.
uncommon and higher.
That's still huge though. Wow. 50.
By having both of the clauses there, it also makes it so you're going to hit third act, even if your opponent doesn't necessarily want you to hit third act. So, because with the life
Mm.
clause,
Oh, yeah.
you
Sure.
can see some concern about like, oh well, I'm not going to hit my opponent then, because then it'll put them below 10. So we made it so that like, oh, if you get down to 1 card in hand, you still hit third act. So
Mm.
you still have a lot of agency in like how you're going to get to this game state. And it's also like both options are about pushing the game towards the end. So that's something that I think is always important for any type of limited and then Magic in general.
Wow. 50 cards. I'm still reeling. That's a huge number.
We're seeing all your polls for sets, like how many vehicles, how many spacecraft. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
we're gonna make it so everybody's wrong about the number of third act cards.
Yeah. I feel like, yeah, number of vehicles, number of spaceships. I feel like the threshold is somewhere in the 30s normally. Maybe you can get up to 40, but getting to 50, that's huge. And it means you actually get to play with it. You actually feel it in most games. Yeah, I like it. Alrighty. Well, that's a little bit of a glimpse of the set itself to go along with the process. maybe not the process of anecdote style, but the process from like a management style. Hey, you made a set in about a month. But before we get out of here, I want to always remind people about all the stuff you can do on the Discord. We have our most regular thing every month. We've got a design challenge. This is the number one way to get started with the pod. If you're a new listener, you new Discord member, here's your way. I don't really know. Do I want to get involved in sets yet? Not really. Just design one card. And we do a monthly challenge. That challenge gives you some guidance, and we want to see your card. We review every card, whether it's a regular on the server or someone brand new. We like to see both of those equally. And this month, the challenge is objection. Design a card showing the new keyword objection. So how are you going to convey objection as a keyword? We say keyword, you could also do ability word, blah, blah, blah. Those kind of like italic-y rules, texty things. Either way, we want to see it. Have you done a card for this yet? You were busy designing a million movie cards.
I haven't done a card for this one yet. That's
Yeah.
definitely on my to-do list for this month.
Oh,
I
okay.
was thinking, is there a play on words with objection for like turning something into an object? But I think it's a little bit of a stretch to go down that route.
The like programming memes themed magic set. All right. Your opponent's phone is now enchantable. It's now a game object.
There we go.
We also like to do some bonus points for people who want a little bit of jumping off point. Party of the first. The card should be or care about cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard. The kind of now classic, I guess, the party types from Zendikar Rising. And then legal brief. Oh, this was Juliet's gift to me. 4 lines of rule text or less. Give us those brief cards. Oh, I'm going to be breezing through these cards during the design challenge. But whether you do 4 lines or less or not, it's going to be due August 29th. As always, we love seeing all those submissions. I also want to shout out that You Make the Pack has just kicked off. This is a super fun event. This is another great way to get started, to like just get involved. What we're doing here is we're making a pack 1 card at a time, 1 week at a time. So what pack do we make? We don't know yet. Give us just a cool card, and then everyone votes on it. Whatever card makes it into the pack. Now we got 1 card. You design a new card, you can have it be pretty orthogonal to that first card if you want to, or you can try to tie into it. You can see some of that flavor. You can see some of those mechanics. Everyone makes their second card, vote that in, lock it in. Now we have 2, and then 3, and then it speeds up towards the end. We'll do 2 at a time towards the end. But this is another great like event to check in every day, give your feedback, try out your cards. People have been doing kind of a cool thing here where they'll just, before voting, they'll just give like a sentence feedback on each submission, on each of the 10 cards or whatever. And that's also a good way of like using your kind of analytic brain to just get your ideas down for each of those cards. I know you've always been quite involved in You Make the Pack, Redbay. Were you psyched to see it come back?
Yeah, it's been a while now since we did a You Make the Pack, and I was feeling kind of the excitement of, hey, you get to make some cards, you get to talk about cards. This is a really collaborative event, which is, I think, probably the best part about it. And just like we've been talking about this whole episode, like just make a card and get it into the mix of things. People are going to talk about it. They're going to tell you what they like, what they dislike, and you're going to get a chance to really hone in on what like the best version of that card looks like. And then you get to see a bunch of really cool cards as well. So I think that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's kind of a good jumping off point for ideas too, because even if the card doesn't get selected, you still made a sick card. You still have that under your belt. You still have that confidence boost, that excitement of like, oh, I made a card. A bunch of people talked about it with me, and we really feel like we kind of optimized this card. We made this card for real. That's a really fun part about You Make the Pack. One bonus plug while I'm thinking about it is that we also have an episode coming out. If you want to try to design a really powerful card, you're tired of all these like people saying, oh, they probably wouldn't print that. Oh, that's too good for standard. How about go all the way in the other direction and design a card for Vintage Cube? We have a channel going on. You can look for the Legacy Cube episode here, Green-White Legacy Cube. What we're asking for is a green-white card to go in the green-white section of this really high-powered cube, a card that's really going to stack up to that. We're going to be reviewing those with a guy who runs his own, high-power cube and go through his thought process What would make this card usable? Is this card good as it is? Is it feeding off the right themes? That kind of stuff. I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. This is a unusual space for custom design.
I got my one soapbox moment for the people that are doing designs for the Green White Legacy
Okay.
Cube episode. When people look at Selesnya cards, they're not there. They're not in the pack. It's not real. So you need to break through that barrier, which
Yeah.
means like you got to go pretty hard, I think, in order to get people excited about a Selesnya card.
Over the weekend, I was hanging out with some friends and I explained this concept to them and we started talking through ideas. And we had like, 5 or 10 ideas jotted down and a couple other friends came in. We were all at a house for the weekend. And one guy looked at the list and he's like, none of those cards would make the cut. Sorry. You got to start over. And that's a tough thing. People want to make like a card that's like the equivalent of like the strongest Theros god. But the strongest Theros god is maybe not going to be strong enough to make it in Vintage Cube. You maybe have to like aim even higher than that. One of the feedback we were hitting kind of often was Selesnya, you kind of want to make like just like a couple cheap threats or like resilient threats. Like that feels like the most Selesnyan thing. But that is really hard to make good enough for this like really high level cube. We kind of need something that is interactive with the opponent in some ways, slows them down, or keeps them from slowing you down. We need to go a little further than just like I make 2/4/4s for 2 mana or whatever, uh, which is where some of the cards are starting to veer. So try to think like what makes green and white interactive on the stack, what makes green and white interesting in a combo. How can we combo off with other cards that would show up in a cube like this? There's no due date on that yet. We're still collecting submissions. We'll probably do it in about a month or so, but it's whenever we get enough submissions. And that'll be it for the podcast for the week. Thanks for coming on, Redbay.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
You got anything you want to tell people about?
No, just head over to the Discord, join You Make the Pack, join the Green White Legacy Cube episode. Hit up the Redbay channel, check out Stars of Sinistara, or if you want, you can also check out Wrenchmar, our junkyard set. We love feedback on both of those sets. They're near and dear to our hearts. One of them is slightly nearer, with just being completed, and
True, factual.
and now that it's not just our two sets of eyes on it, we're getting lots of cool feedback on the set, and we'd love more of it.
And we hope to see you there. And most of all, thanks for listening.